Thanks for watching this special program, ISC Squared, Inspiring the Cyber Workforce. I'm your host, Francis Rose. We have a lot of ground to cover in the next 30 minutes, including the importance of becoming a Certified Information Systems Security Professional, or CISSP, the growing shortfall in qualified cyber pros, and the cyber career as a calling. So let's get right to it. Joining me to talk about cybersecurity education and certification is David Shearer, CEO for ISC Squared. David, thanks very much for joining me today. Last fall, your colleague Dan Waddell was here, and we talked about the importance and the lack, essentially, of cybersecurity professionals. I want to continue that conversation today. Tell me about ISC Squared. Remind viewers who you are and what you do.
Well, ISC Squared stands for the International Information Systems Security Certification Consortium. So ISC Squared is the short way of saying that. We were established in 1989. We have 120,000 members working in over 160 countries. But we're well known for the nonprofit membership organization behind the CISSP certification that you just mentioned. However, we do have other certifications for cyber information, software, and infrastructure security as well.
You have 120,000 members around the world. How are they distributed?
By region, so North America region makes up the United States and Canada, so we have 80,000 members here in the United States, 5,000 members in Canada to make up the North America region. In Europe, the EMEA, Middle East, and Africa region, we have 20,000 members. In the Asia Pacific region, we have 15,000 members, and in Latin America, we have 1,500 members.
What do you think that distribution all over the world, I mean, very similar cohorts of people all around the world, means both for the cybersecurity profession in general and for your organization in particular?
Well, I think as other countries start to become more advanced and look at cybersecurity, we're growing in those different regions. Of course, the United States continues to be our stronghold here, Virginia being one of our largest CISSP concentrations here in the United States. So it just shows the maturation of the profession and the fact that it really is a global type of challenge that requires a global sustained response.
Are there common threads in the kinds of cybersecurity challenges that other nations are facing? Are they dealing your folks in all over the world dealing with the same kinds of threats, and the landscape looks the same as it does here in the United States?
Yes, I think it's pretty much the same across. Emerging, developing countries may not have the types of threats, the velocity and the magnitude of the threats that we may see here in the United States, but for the most part, it follows a very similar pattern.
Tell me about the membership that you have here in the Metro DC area, the people that you've trained here. What's that spread look like? Government versus industry and so on.
So we have a large concentration here, roughly 20,000 members here in the DC area, and with Virginia having our largest concentration of CISSPs. It is a large concentration of federal and contractors that work for the federal and DOD. The DOD 8570 standard actually requires some of our certifications for various positions of trust. So we have a very large contingency here in the National Capital area.
So you mentioned CISSP, that stands for Certified Information Systems Security Professional, about 115,000 of those around the world. What exactly is that person who has that certification, and what can he or she do as a result of that certification, or what are they recognized for?
Well, I think, they're recognized for someone that understands both the programmatic and holistic nature of cybersecurity, and also has the appreciation for the deep dive technical. And we really believe that that's the strength of the certification itself. No one can be an expert in all aspects of it, but if you don't understand the breadth of the program and how everyone plays a role in cybersecurity, it's absolutely instrumental. And really, the international market has recognized that. We're proud of how recognized the CISSP has become around the world. And so you get somebody that can come in. Many times our members are dropped into an organization that hasn't even started their cyber program. So they need to understand how to put it in place programmatically, the staffing that goes with it, the types of tools they're going to need. And so it's a very broad topic, but you need to go extremely deep as well.
So there's two tracks that I kind of take away from that. One is the technical aspect, understanding the bits and bytes and how all of that stuff works. There's also a strategic element, a management element that I'm not sure that people focus on as much. Am I on the right track?
Well, I think, there's a tendency that we talk about the deep technical, the penetration testers, the hackers, whether they're black hat or white hat, working on the right side of the law or the wrong side of the law. But, there's an overarching aspect. We have CISSPs that are chief information officers, chief information security officers that look at cybersecurity from a programmatic standpoint. They need to. Then we have people that specialize in pen testing and the more specialized skills. So really our membership of CISSPs covers the gamut of large overarching and then deeply technical skilled professionals that are out there trying to do some good in the world.
You use a term that I find fascinating as penetration testing, pen testing. What does that consist of, and what do you see somebody who's got a certification, a CISSP, as being more qualified to do it maybe than somebody who is not, who doesn't have the certification?
Well, you know, we don't say that a CISSP is an expert pen tester. There's going to probably be other training that you're going to need to take to become a professional penetration tester. But you have to understand that there's penetration testing, there's defensive postures, there's offensive postures. That's really where the sweet spot for the CISSP is, so that an organization understands it's not just about defending yourself. It's that if you are compromised, you almost have to go on the offensive to dig out those intruders, you know, the bad actors that are in there trying to exploit your defenses. And so it's really looking at it from a broad, holistic view that I think is the benefit of a CISSP certification for somebody in cybersecurity.
So that takes me where I wanted to go next. How has the nature of this process changed? How has the nature of the certification world changed as the threat landscape has changed and as what organizations expect from their information security professionals has changed?
Well, I think, you know, there's a rapid debate, you know, certificates, certifications, which one do we need, which one should we have, and of course, you know, IC², we don't say that we're this one-stop shop for everything, right? We try to give our members a very broad understanding of what needs to take place, and then you have the manufacturers that have deep dive training in their specific architectural or their products and those things. We remain product agnostic and train for the broad understanding of cybersecurity. So I think the thing that's changing is that there was definitely, when we started, there was a more focus on very technical, very detailed work. But if you take a too narrow technical view, you may miss some of that big picture aspects of cybersecurity. If you stay too broad and at the high level, then you may not be implementing those deeply technical controls that mitigate risk. So it's really a juggling act. It's a balancing act to try to find that. And I think there's a tendency to try to minimize one over the other. But we find that when we blend the two, when we blend an understanding of the deeply technical aspects of it with the holistic aspects of it, we put people in place that can design, implement, and maintain a cybersecurity program that's going to put their organization in the best defense posture.
Do you find commonalities in the way that people come to you to receive this certification, in whether they have an emphasis in the holistic or an emphasis in the technical, or is it just kind of a mishmash and you get people coming from all over the landscape as far as what they're already well or better versed in, one versus the other? Well,
you know, I'm talking in a lot of general terms, but I think if you were to ask somebody who prepares for the CISSP, it covers a lot of content. You know, it's a 6-hour examination, and so it covers a lot of content. People come to us from all different walks of life, and in fact, we actually need to be reaching out and bringing people in from non-traditional aspects because of the dearth of talent that we're trying to fill. So yeah, lots of people come up through the ranks of IT. They come over into cyber. A lot of people come out of the Department of Defense. Our military provides a lot of cybersecurity professionals that come into the civilian, both federal and private sector ranks.
We'll talk more about widening the spectrum of the folks that you're bringing in later in the program. There has been some criticism. Some critics say that certification is not necessary, that there is a lot going on here that is maybe not needed for some pros that are getting into this space. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think companies that are hiring people, they have a desire to have some level of assurance that the people that they're hiring can actually do the job they're being hired to do. So I think from a company standpoint, and that's really the need that we try to fill, is giving people assurances that somebody has done the work, that they have at least a very comprehensive understanding of what it takes for cybersecurity in an organization. I think there's always going to be debates, whether it's formal education, whether it's certification. We're seeing today that people are more often recognizing that formal education can be actually a good path to certification, that when they leave college or university, they go into a professional certification organization like ISC². We're not the only one, but like ISC², where continual education is required, where you're going to continue to sharpen the saw and your skills to make sure that you stay the best of the best. But I think that those types of things where people want to debate whether certification, you know, is necessary, there are a lot of other fields in nursing and other fields that require certification. So cybersecurity is not, we're not, blazing a trail here. I'm a CEO of a certification body, so, we believe strongly that certification can make a difference.
And it strikes me that it is the pathway. It's not a destination. This is a way for someone to understand the way that someone's career is progressing, not the way that someone's career has terminated. Am I on the right track there?
No, I mean, it is a path, and I think that's why continual education, I think the certification bodies, whether it's in cyber or other things, normally require continual professional education to maintain that certification. And so what you want is somebody who's committed to lifelong learning, committed to their craft. In this case, cybersecurity, the craft of cybersecurity. It's constantly changing. You have to be reading and keeping up and going to, conferences and keeping your skills up. And so I think that's something that's kind of built into the certification path that makes it attractive to employers that say, I think we've got somebody here that first demonstrates some knowledge, skill, and ability, and also a commitment to continuing to keep those skills sharp as they move forward and advance in their career.
Now that you understand the comprehensive certification that ISC² offers, let's take this show in a big picture direction. We'll talk about the growing shortfall in qualified cyber pros next. You're watching ISC², inspiring the cyber workforce. Stay with us.
Your organization needs CISSPs. Easy, right? But wait, your team members differ in experience, geographic location, and learning styles. Oh, and cost. That's an issue too. Easy just became tear your hair out difficult. ISC² can help with CISSP training and a range of instructional options. Have traditional learners in a central location? Classroom-based training lets them engage face-to-face with instructors and colleagues. Want your training to reflect your culture? Private on-site training tailors CISSP content for your team. Faced with a geographically dispersed team or cost constraints, ISC² takes online training further with built-in student and facilitator interaction. We help you choose the best options for your workforce. Your team masters the common body of knowledge from ISC² authorized instructors. Your company benefits from the industry's leading security certification. And you get a partner beyond training with study aids, updated content, continuing education, and more. Relax. With ISC², you've got this covered.
Welcome back to this special program, ISC², inspiring the cyber workforce. I'm your host, Francis Rose. The rising number of cyber threats here in the United States and abroad have resulted in a significant talent gap in the cyber workforce. According to ISC²'s 2015 Global Information Security Workforce Study, there will be a 1.5 million person shortfall in qualified cybersecurity professionals between 2015 and 2020. Today, the latest numbers are out, and they're even worse. Let's pick things up there with David Shearer, CEO for ISC². David, you just released the 2017 Global Information Security Workforce Study. What'd you find?
Well, I think the thing that jumped out at most of us was that between the 2015 study and 2017, the deficit of qualified cybersecurity professionals has actually increased. In the 2015 study, we were projecting a 1.5 million deficit between 2015 and 2020. Now between 2017 and 2022, a 1.8 million deficit in talent. So the numbers are going in the wrong direction. I think another thing that jumps out in the study is that the millennials, the largest generation of our time, the most diverse generation of our time. And we don't seem to be attracting enough people into the industry. And so the fact that the millennials and the Gen X and baby boomers that tend to be the hiring officials tend to be looking at the world very differently, surprise. And even from a communication standpoint, communicate very differently. And so this is going to be the pool of talent that we really need to do a better job of drawing from. And so the study has some very interesting differences in there at what motivates millennials. That's very different from the Gen X and baby boomers relative to employment. So that jumps out. But your viewers can take advantage of looking at the study at imcybersafe.org. That's all one word, imcybersafe.org. There's a lot of other very interesting information there that organizations can use to maybe help prepare themselves to do a better job of attracting more people to the profession.
There's two elements there that I want to dig into. One is the raw numbers, and one is what you refer to as the pool of people that comprise those raw numbers. We'll start with the numbers first. How are we getting further and further behind the 8 ball on this, David?
Well, I think, Francis, the bottom line is, we're just not effectively attracting people in. And I think in some cases it's the messaging. I don't know. It's really the million-dollar question, because it confounds us. Not just me, everyone in the industry. The numbers are going in the wrong direction. And you see a profession that you can make a good salary, you're fighting a good cause, you think that people would be coming in numbers to the profession. It just doesn't seem to be happening. So I think we need to do a better job of making people aware of the challenges we face in cybersecurity and the career opportunities that come with those challenges. We need to just do a better job in our messaging and reaching out. We also need to be looking at other career paths, entry-level people and people that are looking to change careers that may want to come into cybersecurity, and giving them options and ways to actually come into the profession and help us meet the needs at the market and the global market. Because we're all competing with the same limited pool of talent, and that pool of talent is getting stretched thinner and thinner as the risks go up, as the attacks go up. And so we're starting to even see burnout, and it's an aging workforce as well. So it's almost a perfect storms type of situation that we're trying to make a positive difference.
We'll talk about the global elements of this in a moment, but the sense of urgency, at least, I guess if there's anything to be heartened by, is that the sense of urgency, everybody seems to get it. 3 members of Congress recently wrote to the Office of Personnel Management saying, do we really have to ask people when we're recruiting for cyber pros that do they have to have a 4-year degree, or can we compensate for the fact that they have other kinds of qualifications, maybe other kinds of certifications that demonstrate that they're ready to do the job even if they don't have a 4-year degree. Do you expect to see more of that, maybe not on the government level even, maybe in the contractor community, where they're saying, as long as you can demonstrate that you can do this job, we don't care so much about what your educational background is or what your experience in the field is or whatever. As long as you can show us you're able to do the job that we need you to do on the first day that we hire you.
I do think we'll see more of that. It seems like we've gotten away from the vocational approach to things. I think as we've gone more towards a service economy, away from the manufacturing days, I think that whole type of vocational aspect of things has changed. There are folks out there that learn great without formal education, and they do great work. I think that certification will still be the type of thing that employers look for as some sense that says, well, they've passed a respected certification. They may not have a 4-year degree, but with those certifications often comes years of experience. And so those are things that we think can be differentiators. But then we also need to provide for paths for people that don't have a lot of experience, that can actually come into developmental roles and entry-level roles, maybe from other types of career paths that we never thought of before. We see more and more on the arts side of the career. We talk about STEM, now STEAM, adding arts into the equation, where we can get people that are very creative. Well, our adversaries are highly creative. They take the common conveniences that we take for granted and use them against us in criminal and illegal activity. And so looking at the creative side, blending the left and right sphere of the brain towards taking on, a strategy against our adversaries also has some promising aspects of it that we need to consider.
Are you starting to see some specific areas where folks are coming into the cyber profession from places, career paths that you would say, I wouldn't figure cyber pros would come in from that area, like in the arts and so on?
We haven't. There have been discussions about it, and I think our job, whether we're academia or we're certification bodies, is to provide a path for that to happen. If we were seeing that happen, we'd probably see the numbers going in the right direction, but the numbers going in the wrong direction. So I completely agree with you. I mean, we need to be looking for ways to do that. We just need to do a better job, because the work that we're doing while we're fighting the good fight, we just don't seem to be doing a good enough job as an industry in attracting people in from all pools of talent. We're going to have to draw from all pools of talent to take on this challenge.
And draw from everywhere, I imagine. In the first part of our conversation, you talked about the number of members that you have that are all over the world. One of the possibilities that could prevent them from being able to help in this fight where we need numbers is potential changes to the H-1B visa program. Are you worried about changes to that program impacting the ability of some of those folks to come to the United States and work?
Good question. I mean, I'm electing not to worry about it. I'm being cautiously optimistic. We've communicated with the administration that our hope is for improvements in the H-1B1 visa program will not preclude leveraging our international members who we believe are part of the solution, not a part of the problem. And they're skilled and knowledge in being able to protect and add security to U.S. products and services and defending those corporations that manufacture those services and products. And they also subscribe to a code of ethics with ISC² that we believe helps make them a part of the solution and not a part of the problem.
How does that code of ethics fit into all of this conversation, David?
So members of ISC² sign a code of ethics that has various canons that they'll act with honor, honesty, reliability, justly, legally, very importantly, that they'll defend society and protect the infrastructure, and that they will actually help advance the profession. So we believe that people that subscribe to that type of ethical conduct are part of the solution.
I want to go back to the research that you did, this report that is just out. The other element that we talked about a little bit at the beginning of this conversation is the pool of people who are coming in. And you mentioned that there are certain areas, certain types of folks that you'd like to see more of in this profession that we're quite frankly not seeing. What are some of those groups, and what do you think it will take to attract them to this area?
Well, we know that women remain underrepresented globally. So globally, women only represent 11% of the workforce. We think we can do far better than that. We also know that here in the United States, there are other underrepresented minority groups. We have a study that's going to be released later this summer about the minority workforce in the United States, because we believe that we need to draw from all of those pools of talent. And so we've been fighting the good fight and trying to get more women into the profession. And some of that is just the culture that we need to, some of it's culturally, we got to get away from the kind of the boys club mentality within the cyber workforce. But we also need to look broader, and we need to draw from all pools of talent and then work with those types of minority schools and education and groups to try to make a difference, because they are part of that millennial group that is the largest, most diverse generation of our time. That's the team we're going to field. Folks that are getting a little longer in the tooth like myself that are going to be moving on, those are the people we need to draw from. So we need to find better avenues to reach out to them and make it attractive for them to come into this a career path that can have great rewards for them.
We just have a minute or so left in this part of our conversation. One of the criticisms that you've taken is that you're creating a barrier to entry, essentially, for the very kinds of people that you just described. How do you respond to that?
Well, I've heard that, and I suspect that there are other perceived barriers of education, hiring biases, but we're certainly not trying to create barriers. But we also need to recognize that employers need some sense of assurance that the people they hire know what they're doing, and so we look at things where when people complain about experience, for example, the CISSP requires 5 years of experience. A lot of people don't have 5 years of experience, yet you'll see entry-level jobs that require a CISSP. So we're kind of out of touch there. So we need to do more to make the industry aware of that. But we provide an alternate path for people to come in that don't have the experience that can be an associate of ISC². And we started that program in 2003. 15,000 people, over 15,000 people come through that program, with 86% of them going on to hold one of our certifications. And so we believe that we've eliminated the experiential barrier, but we haven't eliminated the fact that you need to prepare and pass a rigorous examination that's going to ultimately be required when you get that experience to hold one of our certifications.
Solving the world's cyber problems will take a work of genius. Thomas Edison called that pursuit 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. We've covered the technical part of that pursuit. We'll look at strategy next. You're watching ISC², inspiring the cyber workforce.
You're part of the cybersecurity movement, and you've set your sights on an ISC² certification. That's a good decision. The Global Information Security Workforce Study predicts a shortfall of 1.5 million infosecurity employees by 2020. But companies want qualified job candidates, and certification takes both knowledge and experience. So how can you prove your competence now while getting the work experience required for certification? By becoming an associate of ISC². When you become an associate, you substantiate your knowledge in the cybersecurity arena. You show commitment to the industry, and you differentiate yourself with employers enjoying better career opportunities. Here's how to get started. First, determine which certification you want to earn: CISSP, CCSP, another? Then create a Pearson VUE account and schedule your ISC² exam. Though ISC² certification exams are rigorous, rest assured, we can help you with the information and resources you need to prepare. Pass the exam, and once you pass, celebrate! You're now an associate of ISC². Maintain your associate designation through continuing education, choosing from a wide range of options. Then work toward certification by applying your knowledge in your professional role. Required experience ranges from 1 to 5 years, depending on certification. As an associate of ISC², you become part of something greater than you alone. With a membership that provides you real benefits: access to a talented global community for networking and idea exchange at the beginning of your career path, a digital badge you can use to visually signify your associate designation, a competitive advantage for cybersecurity career opportunities, discounts to industry and education events like Security Congress, free cybersecurity webinars and magazines, and access to industry-leading learning resources. Ready to begin your certification journey? Become an associate of ISC².
It's no secret the federal government's had a hard time recruiting and retaining its cybersecurity workforce. There are thousands of openings across government. Last year, that shortfall prompted top White House officials to release the first ever federal cybersecurity workforce strategy. They found, quote, federal agencies' lack of IT talent is a major resource constraint that impacts their ability to protect information and assets. Awareness about cyber workforce programs was also a big problem. Joining me again, David Shearer, CEO of ISC². David, you served in the military and you were also in government on the civilian side. What's your theory, what's your advice to somebody thinking about doing cybersecurity as a profession, either in the public sector side or the private sector side?
Well, let's start with public sector and military, because government and military matters. I spend time in both of those areas, and you get some very unique challenges there that you won't see in the private sector side, just based on federal agency and military mission areas. So I would encourage people to think about that, and the military is certainly not a bad place to start. We draw a lot of talent out of the military for cybersecurity. So that would be my plug for serving your country, which I think is an important calling. But the challenge that we face is across all markets, and we have severe deficits of talent. And so if public service and military isn't your calling, you can find a great career opportunity in cybersecurity if you're willing to do the work. These don't tend to be 9-to-5 jobs. These tend to be jobs that can really grind you out, but the people that are committed to making a difference, like our members are, and we hope more people that can come into the profession, I think can find some real satisfaction, not just monetarily, but in doing something really meaningful, something that's badly needed. Our adversaries are relentless, and we need help.
You are preparing for your Security Congress event. It is running September 25th to the 27th, early bird registration through July 31st. Tell me about what we'll find there.
Well, this is our first solo event. It's in Austin, Texas, so it's a great venue. Some people, that's a bucket list type of item because Austin's a great place, but often we don't find our way there. So we think it's a great location for the event. And we'll probably have on the order of 1,500 ISC² members and non-members there, with deep dive sessions, great keynote speakers, CPE opportunities so they can keep up those continuing professional education credits that they need to maintain their certification. We're real excited about it, and we hope to see a lot of our members turn out.
David Shearer of ISC². Don't eat too much barbecue in Austin, and thanks very much.
Thank you, Francis. It's been a pleasure to be here.